And as you can see here, he's kind of holding or grabbing, pulling, lifting that name there along with the arrow. And man, oh man, when I seen that, I just thought, is that not the coolest imagery? Very basic, but yet showing everything that you want to show. Hey everybody, welcome into the Beehive. So today I want to look into some ancient coins, and I got a comment on my channel that kicked this all off. I'm gonna share that screen here and talk about it. Okay, so here we are on my channel, and Mr. Monkey Swag 96 says, get over there. I also own a Hercules tetradrachm of Seleucus. However, my coin was struck in Seleucus's own name rather than Alexander's. I assume my example was minted when Seleucus crowned himself as king rather than being a mere satrap under Macedon. And this comment was to this short here, and I want to show you on the back what he is, or what I was talking about and he was pointing out. Okay, so we have on the back of this Alexander the Great tetradrachm, I talk about in this little short video here how below his throne, his seat there, it says Basileos in Greek. And I am not a Greek I can't really read Greek. I can just somehow kind of read it. So, must be somewhat similar to our language. And I was pointing out that this says Basileos, and that means king. And over here, it says the A is kind of off the flan a little bit here, but Alexandru. But if you notice down here, it's an Alexander the Great tetradrachm from 311 to 306 BC, minted at Babylon. And so Mr. Monkey was pointing out that he has a Alexander tetradrachm like this, but instead of it having the name Alexandru here, it's got Seleucus. And he's like, why would they be putting out Alexander's name when Seleucus is now stamping his name on coins? And so that got me thinking, well, maybe I got something wrong, or well, yeah, no, that's a good question, so I figured I better dig. So I started digging, and that brought me to this tab over here, or this page, and it says the dating of the coinage of Alexander the Great. So Alexander the Great, only 20 years old when he became king of Macedonia in 336 BC, was perhaps the greatest general of all time. He was certainly a great empire builder. In the course of just 13 years before his death at Babylon in 323 BC, he changed the Mediterranean and Near Eastern world forever by bringing the territory of the Persian Empire under Greek rule. And then it says, the repercussion of his reigns were thus profound, and nowhere more so than in the history of money. Alexander's coins, the most familiar being the silver issues bearing the head of Hercules on the face and a seated Zeus with the king's name on the other, were struck throughout the empire. And then it says such coins were not only minted during Alexander's lifetime, but their issue was continued in the 2 decades following his death by the Macedonian generals who divided the empire between them and created the Hellenistic kingdoms. Like that Mr. Monkey was saying, which he has one of those generals, and it was known as the Seleucid Empire, the Seleucid part of that the one of the 4 generals took over. They kind of split it up between them. Alexander's 4 great generals, they split it up different parts of that kingdom. And so yeah, right there it's telling us even as the successor king initialed coinage in their own names and with their own types of Alexanders lived on for 2 centuries, during which time they were issued by independent cities as an international coinage. So even after there was other coins being produced in the name of the generals as they had taken over their areas, they were still minting Alexanders as a international coinage for quite some time. So that kind of answered my question right there, and I found that answer in some more places. So yeah, they did continue to have posthumous issues after his lifetime. Then a lot of them didn't have the basileos underneath, but some of them still had Alexander's name there for quite a while, and mine was one of those examples. But I kept reading and I found out something that was really interesting and that I want to share with you guys. So they just talk about, they're talking about dating the coins and the ancient coins of Alexander, and when did they date to? When did they first start minting them, and when did they stop minting them? And so there was someone who came in and did a big study on them. Newell here came up with what he thought was a timeline for them. And then another guy, Price, and they have several different people talking about, they did a study on the coins and decided that he started minting right when he came into power in 336, and then some said no, 332, and there was a older date, and then there was some that said no, it needs to be the younger date. And what I found interesting about that was that we get down here a ways, and this Zervos in 1982, Orestes Zervos discussed Alexander's early coinage, championing Cleaner's theory of a lower date, which had been for most part dismissed. His article was essential in that it posed a serious challenge to the traditional dating system worked out by Newell, spurring much discussion amongst scholars. As of today, opinion is quite divided on the subject. There are as many proponents of low dates as high. This was not the case after Cleaner's article was published, and Zervos deserves the credit for being the first to provide successfully an alternative to a well-established tradition. Okay, and then it goes on to say, Zervos principally details the Cleaner's theory regarding the silver tetradrachms. Cleaner argues that the seated Zeus type on the Alexander tetradrachm was based on the Cilician type of the ball of Tarsus, which implies that Alexander or his officials had seen these coins before minting his own, because the figures of Zeus of the earliest Alexander coins of Tarsus and the earliest of Amphipolis are so similar. Cleaner argues that the ball minted by Zeus was the prototype for the Zeus at the same mint for coins issued by Alexander, and from them the Zeus of Amphipolis was derived. Okay, and then so he is arguing that Alexander didn't start minting coins until or after he had seen the. Okay, so here we are back on my channel here and looking at my short videos, and I want to show you a glimpse of something that I'm seeing, and evidently not only that I was seeing, but that someone else was seeing. And I guess before we jump into that, I want to talk a little bit about the imagery that I'm seeing on these coins. And so if you I grew up kind of with the Bible, and I've read a lot in the Bible. And so a lot of the imagery that I'm seeing on these ancient coins matches up with the imagery I have heard all my life. And so some of these things there's a scepter on the back of the coin, there's a throne, there is a footstool, there is an eagle, um, lots of different representation that you hear within the Bible. And like, for example, if you come over here to Esther, let me share the tab here in the Bible, and you read Esther chapter 4, verse 11. All the king's servants and all the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of him, is to put him to death, except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. So, and then, so right there you can see that Esther, who was being told needs to go in and make a plea for Israel to the king, and she's saying, well, everybody knows that there's a law. If you're not invited into the king's inner courtroom there, that there's a death sentence on him unless he holds out his scepter. And so then we go to the next chapter, and says, now it came to pass on the third day that Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house over against the king's house. And the king sat upon his royal throne. So there's that word, throne. Sat upon his royal throne in the royal house over against the gate of the house. And it was so, when the king saw Esther the queen standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter. Then they had a little talk there. But there's some of that imagery that was well known at that time. She knew that there would be, that he would have a scepter, and that how much power it wielded. And so, and then we'll look over here we'll look at one more cool line that I really like, and it says, and every priest standeth daily ministering and offering oft times the same sacrifices, which can never take away sins. But this man, after he had offered one sacrifice for sins forever, sat down on the right hand of God in his throne, right, in his throne room, from henceforth expecting till his enemies be made his footstool. So there we have that imagery again, a footstool. And then, of course, you have speech like he carried him out of Israel on the wings of an eagle. And so you get all this different imagery. When I started looking at these ancient coins, I just noticed that, well, firstly, if you go watch my introduction to my channel, I talk about the reason I got into silver and gold was not because I wanted to get rich or anything to do with that. It was that I was seeing lots of lies being told in the world, and I then was talking to someone who told me about the lies in the monetary system, and I thought, boy, that matches up. And then he was telling me about silver and gold and how, it just can't be printed out of thin air, and that made sense to me, and that's what got me into silver and gold. And then that led me, to cool coins. And then seen and found, oh, there's ancient coins, and wow, they're actually a real thing that you can still get. And when I was looking at the ancient coins, I noticed that they were speaking to me without words necessarily, and um, that was kind of what I was finding in my own time in the world, just to look into reality to get more truth out of it. And then I was looking at these coins, and I was thinking, okay, this is the reality of their time. And I was realizing, wow, these coins are speaking. They're saying something. And I didn't understand fully what they were saying, but I could see that there was a lot of speech coming out of these coins. So I really got intrigued by it. And so one of the first coins I got was this Cilicia Tarsus coin. And so let's go take a look at it. Okay, so you can see here on this coin that we have his throne, his nice throne chair here. He has his scepter with a blooming flower up there on top. He has a footstool. It's a little bit off of the flan on this example, but normally there's a little footstool there. And then in his hand, he has this eagle and also an ear of grain and some grapes, all imagery that, is talked about in that time quite often. So I looked at this coin, and then on the back you have the lion and the bull, and just such a cool imagery there as well. And I was looking at that coin and thinking how cool it is, and um all the power, all of those things that I have read about the throne and the scepter and the eagle and the grapes and the wine and the footstool and all these things I'm seeing in this coin, and thinking, wow, this is coming from that time, and this would have been the imagery that they were looking at and thinking about. So people had an understanding about these things at that time. And so I found that quite cool. And then I got this coin, and you notice that it has so much of the same imagery. But what I was noticing about this imagery is that, I think that the people of that time had an understanding, and those people at that time had an understanding that, they were getting their power from God. Now they had different gods and different, goddesses and all that at the time, but when it came to the Greek god Zeus here seated on the throne, and the Tarsus area Mazios coin with Baal seated on a throne, and they have such similar characteristics. What I noticed about it is that both of them were saying our power has been given to us through this God, whichever one it was. Now, at the time, I thought that there was definitely a connection to these, but then once I was reading this paper from Brown University, and it shows that here they are talking about what I was seeing, and that Zervos was saying, look, you can see that this Alexander coin has gotten so much of its imagery from the earlier example of the Cilician Ball of Tarsus coin. And so I happen to have both of those, and just that's kind of what I felt like I was seeing. And then to see it actually, this is what they're claiming is going on, and they kind of go back and forth and have disagreements about it. And then later on, a couple more people chime in and have some more arguments about it. Talks about Delphi, the mint at Delphi shutting down and then coming back online, and then they had to change their standard weight because at the time of Alexander the Great, he wanted to change the standard, perhaps. And so it added more evidence and more evidence. And then we get another scholar coming in, I guess you would say. Yeah, Troxel. And then another person comes in by the name of Troxel and says, yes, this all lines up. They use some, not only the tetradrachms, but other coins, and they match all these different things up, and they say she, like Zervos, believes that the Alexander coins did not begin to be minted until 332. So her argument adds to that of Zervos, and indeed has convinced many, including L.E. Ryder, that the lower dates were correct. Like Price, Troxel is unconvinced by the 5 Eastern elements, which Zervos cites as evidence that the Tarsiot Zeus preceded the Macedonian Zeus. Only the bell covers presented on perhaps a few of the early Macedonian tetradrachms, she argues, are evidence of this Eastern influence with no precedent in Greece. She also suggests that there are 2 additional elements from Tarsus coins found on the earlier coins of Macedonia, the so-called flowering scepter and the footstool. First of all, she clarifies the identification of the initial issues. 2 coins in Newell's group A, established as the earliest group by their relationship to the latest Phillips, proved to be the earliest in the group. Troxel uses characteristics to identify them, such as the first styles of Hercules' hair, where there's bells on the bottom of that throne that were from the Eastern culture. And so they kind of agree finally that, yeah, it's probably that time, and that they're, that the Alexanders were probably pulled from the earlier Cilicia Tarsus coins. And that's what I would say. And I think that when we look, so then we'll come over here and we'll look at another study. And in here, this is the American Journal of Numismatics, 2018. And they go through a whole bunch of information in the dyes and dye work, and they talk about them, and they show their work for the different dyes. They talk a little bit right here about how many different dye types there were, and the first dyes, and based on an average obverse dye life of 20,000 coins, the estimated 12 original dyes commissioned for Group 1 could have struck 240,000 tetradrachms on the Attic weight standard of 17.2 grams. Yada yada. And then we go down further, and it shows some plate examples that I wanted to show you. Plates are just pictures of coins. So these are some of the first lifetime issues of Alexander the Great. And yeah, you can see the familiarity to the Cilicia Tarsus coin. Especially here, looking at this, you can see those bells clearly on the Alexander. It's very similar. He's not looking at you, and maybe not the wreath on his head, but otherwise very much close to the same. It's got that cool Phi sign over there. So yeah, you can see that, this looks a lot like the throne that Baal was sitting on, and much of the imagery, really. And what I think was cool was that, Alexander the Great goes over and conquers Tarsus, but he actually leaves the person that was in charge there in charge, and but I think that they seen him or his die cutters seen those. Obviously, they probably both did the images of those coins, and felt like they wanted to use that. The imagery is so cool there and shows so much. I think they wanted to use it. And so that article goes on to say that some of the first minted coins of Alexander were probably from the Tarsus Mint, where the same die cutters for the Tarsus coins were cutting the Alexander coins, which is very cool. So yeah, there is that, and that led me to something else. So I was like, okay, so now I know that that coin was probably still minted after his death. They kept minting those coins. So at that point, I thought, well, let me look up. Maybe I can see his coin, like, because I can't read Greek very well, but I thought maybe I'll go make sure I'm reading them right and whatnot. So I went to look for a Seleucid map, because on my coin here, you can see I have ancient coin Alexander the Great tetragram minted at Babylon, and in the description I put that it's in the Seleucid kingdom. So we're looking at right now what I looked up next, Seleucid map, and here it's showing, you can see, okay, that's the Seleucid Empire. Babylon would have been like right in here. And so I scrolled down a little bit, and I have in mind how these coins are giving speech about their rulership, Alexander and the Tarsus coin. They were showing that they were getting their power from a god above, and I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about reading coins and reading Greek, and this is all new to me. As they say, this is all Greek to me, but I was looking into it, and it was fascinating. And just like I've been, in my everyday life, I'm trying to look into reality and see what's kind of visibly right there, staring you in the face, the truth that is, reality. And so I seen this coin here, and I was like, okay, well, let's just, I've seen this coin before looking at ancient coins, but I just decided to pop it up and take a look at it. I was not impressed with it. So I popped this image up, and I was looking at it, and I thought, okay, so now what am I looking at here? Why is this coin what it is, and why is it cool? And I wasn't all that impressed with the art. And then I was like, okay, so what am I looking at? And I'm like, well, if I've learned anything from talking with Aaron, to think in, Greek mythology terms. And I had went and watched some of the, the Greek myths. And so I just was like, I'm like, okay, well, what do we see here? Well, this probably we got a guy here with a bow. And I'm like, oh, well, I bet that's probably Apollo. And I was like, oh, I bet that is Apollo. And then I'm like, Okay, well, let's read it here. So we got back here again, we can see, like on my Alexander coin, except Alexander coin has Basileos underneath. Right here we can see Basileos going down the back. I'm like, okay, I can read that there as well, same word. And so I'm like, okay, can I read what this word is? And so it's Antiochus, and then I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, and he's showing, okay, it's like he's right here crowning Antiochus, or holding his name up, or better yet, is this coin saying that through the guidance of God's hand, he has, and through the hand of God has guided his arrows to make him king, to anoint him king. Through the power of God, he is winning his wars. And as you can see here, he's kind of holding or grabbing, pulling, lifting that name there along with the arrow. And man, oh man, when I seen that, I just thought, is that not the coolest imagery? Very basic, but yet showing everything that you want to show. And that, again, in this coin, just like I was seeing on the prior Alexander coin and the prior one to that, the Mazios coin, showing that they were ruling by God. Their throne was being ruled through by God. Here, this is one of Alexander's generals, and he is showing that he has been made general and been successful and upheld by Apollo, the god Apollo. And I don't know, for me, that was fascinating. I just sat here and stared at this coin for a while, just in amazement of, wow, am I really seeing that? And I'm like, I'm gonna have to ask Aaron if that's Apollo. But if that's Apollo, then I just read this coin and seen it, and then that's what I'm talking about, looking into reality and seeing what would it's the spirit that gives life type of thing, when you're able to look at that and see into it and read all of that out of it. Even so, though it's so simple, I just thought that was the coolest art and showing. And I don't know, before, when I'm looking at this coin, I was not impressed, but now that I realize what I've seen, once I seen what I was seeing, and realized what was actually going on there, is now I just desperately want one of these coins. It's just, that is so cool. So maybe not quite to the art level that the Alexander, but it's saying the same thing in a different way. And that's what I found about those ancient coins, that they're speaking, they're showing what was guiding them, what they thought. And I don't know, it's just so cool to look at that and see that the reality as it was, and how they seen it, and the art there is just, the art coming to life, as it were, is so cool. And what it's showing, right? Showing throughout all of those, that it's through the spirit, through their God, that they're overcoming. And I think that they had a basic understanding back then that they were being used by God, like Alexander the Great. It talks about his mother saying that, right before she got pregnant with Alexander, she had a dream, and that I think it was Zeus visited her and showed her that, through her womb there was going to come great fire on the earth, and that she was telling Alexander this, and that the gods were working through them. And I think they believe that. I think that's why Alexander seen that. The coin of Tarsus here. The coin of Tarsus here. Alexander seen that and liked that the imagery was showing through the coin, and took that imagery and idea and used it himself in his coin. Is just very impressive that they were able to show what they were thinking or feeling in that way. And then I'm able to see it all these thousands of years later and actually understand it as a total amateur, and then come to find later that I was actually seeing that right. And then being able to see that allowed me to be able, or for me anyway, it was cool to be able to see that coin of Seleucid, what it was saying. And I just think that is too cool. So I believe, what else was I going to talk about or show? So yeah, I think that was about it. Another thing that that kind of ties together with that in my channel, and what I'm trying to see and what I'm trying to show, and I'm sharing what I seen and came across just last night. And it might not be interesting to you. To me, it is kind of fascinating. And one of the things that I have been telling my family and other people that I'm talking about, trying to see reality for what it is, and that, there's speech that can be had if you look into reality just in nature itself. And I think that they had a better connection, and much more. They knew that there was a spiritual realm, that there was something going on the spiritual level. They had God of the sea and God of the sky, and different gods, but they knew that there was a force there. And that's kind of what I'm noticing, and what led me into gold and silver, and then these ancient coins. And then seeing this just kind of shows me more that I'm seeing something there. And one of the ways I've been explaining that to my family is that if you go to tune a radio, like an old dial radio, and you're trying to dial in to find that right frequency, I feel like that's something that is kind of possible, that you can get information. And then I found this video that I thought was kind of funny, and it says, "Is your DNA an EMF antenna?" And it shows him tuning in an old radio, and it I just found this today, or when and this is just goes right along with what I am thinking about. And he goes on to show that, we're kind of like an antenna. And so yeah, I just wanted to show you that my new coin that I'm now after is this Seleucid coin. I don't know, now that I see the art in it, and what the reality of it, it's beautiful to me. And I don't know, the one thing I don't know is down here on this, he's sitting on some type of basket, and what's on it, I'm not sure what that represents yet. So I got to ask Aaron about that. But I don't know, I just thought, there's not that much there, yet it's saying so much. Um, I think it's cool, so I wanted to share it with you. And that is all I had. So we will catch you all on the next one.